Hey y'all, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Sabrina and welcome back to my book nook. So today we are doing another book review, another pretty popular book. I've definitely seen people talk about it and praise it. So today we are going to be reviewing The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Before I get any further, I just want to break down how my book reviews work really quickly. So my book reviews are broken down into 4 parts. Parts 1 and 4 will be spoiler free, but parts 2 and 3 will have spoilers. Okay? So part 1, I give my beginning thoughts and opinions. I'm just sort of like a beginning rant / rambling, and I also give a brief plot summary. Don't worry, spoiler free. It's just kind of what you would see on the back of the book. Part 2 will have spoilers. If you didn't want spoilers, why are you watching a book review? Just why? I talk about plot, writing, and other elements, just sort of, ranting on the story, ranting on the writing, other stuff like that, I guess. Part 3 will have spoilers as well. I talk about characters and relationships, whether that be, favorite characters, characters I hated, relationships such as friendships, familial relationships, romantic relationships, just sort of all of that. Finally, part 4, spoiler free, I give my final thoughts and opinions, as well as an overall rating of the book and answering the question, is it a must read? Okay, great. Let me briefly sum that up. Again, parts 1 and 4 will be spoiler free. Parts 2 and 3 will have spoilers. Part 1, beginning thoughts and opinions, as well as a brief plot summary. Part 2, thoughts on plot writing and other elements. Part 3, characters and relationships. And part 4, final thoughts and opinions. Great. Whew, okay, now let's jump into the actual review. Oh my god, just like, where do I even start with this book? Oh my god, just wow. I guess right from the beginning, this was not what I thought it was gonna be. First off, I didn't realize it was like literature or like, like an intellectual book. I thought this was just like another piece of YA fiction. I don't know, I don't read these type of books usually, so this was a very pleasant surprise. I loved it. I loved it so much. I think it's my new favorite book, and yeah, it is. It's my new favorite book. And let me tell you, I do not take that title lightly. My old all-time favorite book used to be Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, and then I sort of realized, well, it was actually more of a comfort book, and it was a bit old because it was my favorite book for like, I don't even know how many years in a row. So I was on the lookout for a new favorite book for a while, and I found it. This book was incredible. It was, oh my god, it was so incredible. After I finished it, like the second I put it down, I just sat on my bed and stared at my wall for an hour. Just, my brain was numb and just wow, because that ending, oh my god, I was in shock after the book, and all I could think was, this book is incredible, this book is crazy, this book is insane, but it's so good. And yeah, it's my new favorite book, and by favorite I mean like all-time favorite, which is again not a title I take very lightly. So the plot of the book is a little bit hard to explain without giving too much away. So the book is split into 2 parts, 2 books, and it is in first-person POV of the main character, Richard Papin. Now, Richard is a college student who just recently transferred to Hampton College in Vermont, an exclusive liberal arts college on the East Coast. When he's there, he is drawn to a group of students who later he finds out are all part of the same Greek class, sort of a classics group. And he finds out that they are sort of the elite few who can learn Greek, and he very badly wants to join their group. And the book just sort of explores their relationships together, as well as each character's morality as they go through betrayals, confessions. Yeah, Just sort of like that, yeah. But let's move on to part 2, thoughts on plot, writing, and other elements. Let me premise this by saying I am not a very smart person when it comes to analyzing stuff. I don't read to analyze, I read for fun, and I can tell you right now that this book has a lot of symbolism and a lot of metaphors and a lot of clever writing in it. I can tell you that, I just can't tell you what specifically it is. I can't tell you the meaning behind it. I can point in here and say, look, that's a metaphor, but I can't tell you what that metaphor means. So if you're looking for like a particularly intellectual review and analysis on the book, you won't find one here. Or you'll at least find me attempting one, but honestly, I'll probably just be going over basic, obvious analysis. The main parts I drew from the book and what I felt was most obvious. So forgive me if I miss any important themes. Not a very good analyzer, let me tell you that. First, I want to talk about the overall writing of this book. It's a fairly long book, and each chapter is like around 50 pages or more. So it definitely took me a bit longer to read than usual just because of, the way it's written and the length of this book. The writing is very detailed, and it's super slow-paced. And because of this slow-paced writing, the book often describes mundane events, which obviously intentional, because in this book, the author makes the insane seem sane. Okay, let me explain. So because of the slow-paced writing in this book, and because of how the book basically just describes everything from the smallest detail, the most boring event, to the craziest of things, it sort of evens each other out. By talking about the boring events, it somehow evens out the crazy events to make them seem sane. For example, Henry and the others and the classics troupe literally hold like a cult thing where they kill a man, but it seems sort of reasonable when Henry explains it in his very long monologue because of the writing. Because to us, this is just another long-winded conversation between Henry and Richard, which we've already seen so many previous examples of. It makes the insane seem sane, and that's what's so great about this book, because you're like, that's crazy, or is it? The writing is deliberate. Because of Richard's perspective in the book, the severity of these evil acts that these characters are doing seems a little bit more reasonable, as Richard himself is slowly becoming more and more corrupted and more evil. Another main thing I wanted to talk about this book was Richard's corruption and his morals and ethics slowly degrading. However, I will actually talk about that more in depth in part 3, because that's more about characters and relationships and all that. Another main point of this book is that it is very obviously a critique on this whole elitist, dark academia vibe or aesthetic or whatever fancy word it is, okay? The whole point is that they are all bad characters. They are not people to be glamorized or romanticized. The whole point is that Richard's tale is a cautionary tale. Okay, he admits in the book, I romanticize them to make their actions seem more interesting, to seem more reasonable. The whole point is telling us, do not romanticize these people. Okay, do not glamorize them. Do not glamorize this sort of life. So the final thing I wanted to touch on was the ending of this book. Oh my god, like I said, the writing is so incredibly slow paced, so that the ending, it just gives you whiplash. It's so weird. The ending happens in like less than 10 pages. Henry just shoots himself. Like, Charles comes at him with a gun and Henry just shoots himself, and revelations are made, and just wow. And I'm not including the epilogue, by the way. The epilogue was so sad. It wasn't even bittersweet. There was nothing sweet about it. It was just everyone pretty much ended up miserable. Henry was dead. Richard was miserable and pining after Camilla. Camilla was sad, separated from Charles, which is actually kind of a good thing, and still pining over Henry, again, who's dead. Francis, who is forced to marry a woman and attempts suicide. Charles, who ran away with no money, ran away with a married woman and is no longer speaking to his sister. Just every character in this book just ended up a mess. So epilogue was very sad. So let's move on to part 3, characters and relationships. So let's begin by talking about Richard, the main character. So we read this book from Richard's perspective. And one of the things I love about this book is that you are meant to question Richard's perspective, to question his morality that is slowly going downhill. And I mentioned this earlier, the author wrote Richard as a critique of romanticizing this whole dark academia, elite sort of aesthetic. He is drawn in by these mysterious, rich, elite people and glamorizes them to the point where he sort of tries to defend and reason their evil actions. He was trying to tell himself, it's alright that we planned a murder and went through with the murder. It's alright because I know these people. They're cool. You know, they're my friends. Richard is not a good person, okay? We can just straight up say that. None of the characters in this book are a good person. But, you know, that's the whole point. The book is an examination into what makes characters evil. What causes someone to just abandon their morals, abandon their ethics as they slowly become more and more corrupted? Furthermore, how can you try to reason with yourself that what you're doing is not a crime? What you're doing is not evil? And it's just, it's such an amazing book. The next character I want to talk about was Henry. Henry is the character that stood out to me the most in this book, and I think it's because he was the one that was most isolated from the group. I know what you're thinking, that is not true. Henry is not isolated. He was literally in everything. He was the leader, the mastermind, and you know, he was with Camilla as well. Yes to all those things, but at the same time, no. You know, Henry in the beginning, he had Bunny, but you know, slowly he becomes distanced from Bunny and cuts himself off to the point where, you know, he's willing to murder Bunny. And yes, he had Camilla, he had the whole romantic relationship with her, but Henry was still different from the rest of the group. He was literally like a psychopath. He was the one planning the murders. He was the one executing the murders. He was the one that showed the least amount of empathy and just emotional response to the entire thing. And I feel like no character actually got close enough to him to understand his motives. I don't know. I find him the most interesting and intriguing character out of all of them. Okay, let's talk about Bunny. Now, people like to say that Bunny is the worst character out of all of them. And objectively, yes, he is the worst because he is the one that is directly racist, homophobic, sexist, and just countless other horrible traits. However, again, the entire book focuses on how they are all bad characters. Bunny may have been the one saying these slurs and doing these actions, but the others were just condoning it, tolerating it, laughing at it like it was a joke. You know, not to mention the rest of them were also murderers. So I think it's very interesting when people say Bunny was the worst, when they're all literally terrible people. I mean, you have Henry, again, who is a psychopath. You have Charles and Camilla, who are in an incestuous relationship together, with Charles being an alcoholic who later becomes abusive. And then you also have Francis, who, and this is arguable, but sexually harassed Richard. And then you have Richard, who just straight up abandons his morals so he can fit in, so he can be one of those elite few. He decides, you know what, I like these people, they're cool. It doesn't matter if they murdered someone, you know, they were just doing like a weird cult thing. That's totally normal. Richard is just, he's insane. All of them are insane. Let's move on to part 4. Final thoughts and opinions. Okay, so overall this book was an incredible, intense, super detailed, super time consuming, but overall super worthwhile read. I mean, it is at like a higher level than I usually read, and so I was more challenged by it, but because of that, I enjoyed it even more. And I think that's why I loved it so much, because I poured everything I had into reading this book, and I was rewarded, man. This book is insane, but like in a good way. So without a doubt, I rated this book just 5 out of 5 stars. Amazing. And you know, I bet you're thinking, Sabrina, you rate nearly every book 5 out of 5 stars. Okay, well, you know what, if I could only rate one book out of every single book I've read 5 out of 5 stars, I would rate this one 5 out of 5 stars, because that's just how good it is. Oh my god, I loved it so much. Is it a must read? 100% yes. It might be a longer, more intense read than some people are already used to. I know I wasn't used to it, but it is just, oh my god, it pays off so well. This entire book is just so incredible, and I know that as I reread it in the future, it's only going to get better, because it's one of those books that you can tell that will just stick with you for life. I think that's pretty much all my thoughts and everything I wanted to ramble on about the book. If you watched this entire video, thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, don't give it a thumbs up. If you really hated it, give it a thumbs down, but please don't. If you want more videos from me, subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye!